Hello, boys and girls. In this video, we are going to take our first steps towards understanding what can be said and what cannot be said in the C language. When you first started speaking your mother tongue, you were not able to say very much. You were able to say some simple words and you were able to combine those words in all kinds of idiosyncratic ways. Not all of them were syntactically correct. And so over time, you gradually, implicitly learned the rules that decide how to combine words to form sentences. These implicit rules are what are called syntax. And the syntax can vary across languages. For example, languages like English use a subject verb object order. So generally in English, you say something like, I went to class, where I is the subject, went is the verb, and the class is the object. In Hindi, for example, we say मैं class गया, where मैं is the subject, class is the object, and gaya is the verb. So Hindi tends to use subject, object, verb order. And so in fact, in linguistics, this distinction between SVO and SOV languages is very, very foundational. So in general, if you violate a syntactical rule in a language, you may have broken the syntax, which makes the sentence nonsensical. If you violate a rule that makes the sentence look unconventional, but it can still be understood, you have not actually broken the syntax of the language, you've just violated a standard. So obeying syntax is compulsory, otherwise the sentence makes no sense. Violating the standard is strange, but still acceptable. So, for example, in all of Hindi news stories, you will see that they always follow the English subject verb order standard for reasons that I don't understand. क्यों है आज भारत बंद? अमेरिकी एयरबस पर किया हमला. You'll know that nobody ever speaks this way. It is only news anchors and newspaper headlines that speak Hindi in this way. And it looks strange. It looks strange because we don't speak this way, but what they are saying is still meaningful. You can, well, most of the time it's not meaningful these days, but that's a separate discussion. But the point is that you still have the ability to make sense of the sentence. So similarly, in C, there are some rules that are syntactic rules, and there are other rules which are standards, which are not syntactic rules. For example, and in fact, this was a question that somebody already asked in the Hello IITK forum, the compiler on Pruter accepts the main function even if we don't specify an explicit return statement. You can just say print something and you don't have to say return 0 and there's still no error. However, if you were to use a slightly older compiler, it would actually say this is a problem. Now, this is not because there's anything wrong in the syntax that you've used, it's just that the older compiler is following an older standard. In this course, we will follow the C11 standard, which has been superseded by a more recent C18 standard, but since still there are some compilers and some machines that use the C11 standard and we want to be backward compatible in our code, we'll be following the C11 standard. Now, it may so happen that from time to time we can ask you questions in exams for which the answer would be, it depends on the compiler version. When that happens, if you give this answer, you will get bonus points. If you give answers that are compiler specific, probably get slightly lower marks. So these are going to be trick questions. There's not going to be very many of them, but there are going to be some cases where you get compiler dependence in your answers. So let's talk about the syntax of C, the language that we are trying to learn in this course. The basic alphabet of C is very familiar. It's all the English letters in both capital and small case. It's all the numerals, and it is these special characters, all of these. So space, dot, comma, colon, semicolon, single quote, dollar, double quotes, hash, percentage, ampersand, exclamation, underscore, curly braces, block braces, normal brackets, and this, the pipe operator. So those of you who've never seen this before, this is called the pipe operator. And this is going to be very useful for us in the course. And also the arithmetic expressions. So combined, this forms the alphabet of C, and how this alphabet is to be used in combination to make meaningful statements in C is what our understanding of C syntax produces. Now, the basic unit of syntax in C is the use of variables and constants with some name. We already saw this in the program that we saw in the last lecture, which added two numbers with each other. When you say that I have a box called A, that box is a variable. When you put the number 2 in the box, that variable 2 takes the value 2, that variable A takes the value 2, where 2 is a constant. So the value of variables or constants is stored at some location in the computer's memory. The key difference between variables and constants is that a variable's value can be changed during the execution of the program, but a constant's value cannot be changed during the execution of the program. This is a very technical definition, and I'll ask you some trick questions about this, maybe in one of the minor quizzes. So make sure that you keep this in mind.